Hello, welcome to another like podcast style painting a magic card with me, Steve Brown. I'm going to show you guys how I start painting a card as well, because that's a lot of questions I get, is what kind of like palettes and brushes and paints, so I'm going to get into that. So right now I'm using a wet palette. This is the top of the little like paint part. It's just like a top Tupperware, and then I have a thin sponge. See that underneath? And then I have an old t-shirt that I'm like cutting up pieces whenever it gets nasty, which it should be switched out soon. So it's just a sponge and then a piece of t-shirt on top in a Tupperware. So I'm going to take my water over here and I'm going to splash in enough water until the whole thing's super saturated. I'm going to like moving the water around, and then I dump out the little bit that comes out. So this is like super saturated without being like a pool. I then take this Reynolds like wax paper. What's the actual name for it? Baking sheet, you know, here, and I just cut out the size I need, because I'm just going to be covering this. So took off just a little too big. Cut. And then put this in, and because it's nice and wet, it'll just absorb in and hold it in place. It's going to want to curl a little bit, but as long as you're like kind of pushing it in, making sure it's there, it's going to stay. Then I go in and tape down my subject. I'm going to be doing a dockside, which has been one of my most popular things to paint. So get my tape, and I just make these little circles. I'm sure you've made these a bunch of times. And yeah, you can use double-sided tape, but it makes it a little harder to take off at the end. But I just do 4 of them to make sure that this like stays down. Each side, get it in there, try to make it as flat and as nice as possible. But I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't move and that paint doesn't get underneath and onto the back of the magic card, because doing ultras is easy, making it look clean sometimes is the hard part. You live right there. Boom. Press it down. He's good. He's in there for a while. So, with most cards, sometimes I forgo this because I use pretty heavy acrylics, but when you're doing a lot of different acrylics and it's not a very easy painting, which Dockside is not the easiest, I use a clear texture gesso. And this is just a brand that another ultraist told me to get. I don't know if it's the best, the worst. Somebody just said, hey, pick this up, and I have been using the same bottle for probably a year now, and it's not even like a quarter of the way done, because I use the tiniest amount. So I'm just using this top, and I'm putting a tiny bit on, what size is this? A premium 2. So you see that the brush is just like this little short stubby amount of brush. It still gives, so I can still like control it really well, but it's just this tiny little like throwaway brush that, this is not like a glue or anything, so I can just dump it in water and, you know, it's not hurting the brush. But still, you don't want to use one of your super amazing brushes, because you're kind of treating the brush pretty roughly, hurting its little bristles. The little bristles. And you want to get it all on the parts you're going to paint. What's cool about it being a clear texture gesso is that you can get it a little bit on those parts that you don't want to paint, and no one can really tell because it's clear, unless they're looking super hard. But hopefully by the end of the card, when you're like kind of cleaning everything up, you can kind of scrape away some of the clear gesso that you do not want anymore. So now that this is in and drying, I mean it's probably already dry because I use such a small amount, I'm going to go in and pick all my paints and just put tiny little blobs on here. I've done so many of these, docksides that I kind of know exactly the colors I need for him. A lot of times you have to look in and like identify the browns. That is one of the hardest things for a lot of people, and where a lot of ultrists need to work on. I mean, me included. And put a tiny amount. You see how little that is? A tiny, tiny amount. Like literally, I just let it come out of the cap a little bit, and then that's all I need. If you are using a wet palette, the water is very, very slowly seeping through. So it gives you, on top of the blob, you have non-watered down acrylic, and underneath it, where it's nice and thin, it's going to be nice and watered down for you. So you have like kind of both rolling. The question I get asked almost every time I post something is what acrylics I use. I use golden, and I use the heavy version of every color. So like this is a neutral gray. I've talked a million times about yellow oxide. I use that for everything. Primary cyan is one I use a lot. And these will... for golden, I normally just get like all the basics. I mean, I have some weird ones as well. But because they are so high quality, you need to get at least your basics of that. And then as far as what brushes I use this eBay liner that I found. I found on eBay. They were thin, round liners, and you can see how long these are. I just find that it gives me, I can choke up on them, but it still gives me a nice long amount to play around with, and I can really load up on my colors and blend really, really well that way. So the sizes are, these things are all chewed up. I think I'm just using like a triple, a double, oh no. So I'm using a 00, which is this one. This is my main one. I love this one. It kind of goes all over the place. And then I've cut down, if you could see, you see at the base where the silver part, metal part, meets the bristles, how I cut those down. I just went through with a scissor and just started cutting around. I just cut, just to take a bunch of chunk out, because I really liked the bristles, I liked the length, but there's too much of them. So I just cut around, getting those little just making it smaller, making it little. With these, I was trying to use something to kind of give me a better grip, but then you can't dunk it in the water very easily. So I just go with them really, really tiny. They're not super comfortable, but I have not found any problem with them yet, because they do exactly what I want, and until they snap or go away, I'm not going to buy more of them. As far as a water reservoir, I found this. I think I found this on eBay as well. It is two sides. So this side has these little like staircase parts. You can kind of see it. So it's like a little staircase. You can like run your little brush around. And then this is just like your straight reservoirs for overflow or for, clean water. This got pretty green in the last card I painted. I am also using a tripod flipped upside down, holding my phone. I'm just using a Pixel, a Google Pixel, and that has been, I get to use all the apps I want on that. And on the tripod, it has a ring light. So I use this ring light as well to light everything up. And that is my setup for everything. I am doing a lot of things in post with this. I'm trying to put music on, with my posts. Keep my posts to about a minute and a half. I don't know if you guys want to talk about social media stuff in the next video, but I'm trying to keep all my videos to under a minute for YouTube and over a minute by a little bit for Instagram and Facebook, because the algorithm on both those platforms, to get on IGTV, I seem to get more views on IGTV on Instagram, which means you have to make it a minute or longer, and then you have to get under a minute. Seems like 45 seconds, 50 seconds seems to be where YouTube, what do they call them, shorts, where they want to do it. There's also, if you want to get in on Instagram Reels, under 30 minutes, or under 30 seconds, that seems to be a really nice spot to play some things to. You get a ton of views. If I put up an IGTV of a painting, but then I also put up a reel of a painting, I will get 3 times, 4 times, up to 10 times as many views on the reel that I did on IGTV. It's just I don't want to speed them up so fast to put everything on reels. I like them being a little calmer without my hands just like darting around and going crazy. So thank you for listening to what things I use. I'm also going to be painting Dockside and talking about Magic and EDH and stuff. I think that'll be fun for everybody. See ya.